Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Break the Cycle with me, your host, Joshua Smith. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Tuesday. I'm very sorry that we didn't have a show last night. Some stuff came up, so I had to cancel that show. We will try to get something rescheduled in the near future. But again, I apologize. I know you guys have gotten used to this 5 shows a week thing, but it's still very hard on me sometimes. Anyways, let's start with some sponsors. Of course, we have Lorenzotti.coffee for all your delicious Italian coffee needs delivered directly to your door. Bring the taste of Italy home. Use BTC at checkout for a 10% discount. And the man, the myth, the legend, my good friend and partner on Break the Cycle, toplobster.com for all your graphic design needs like this great Epstein Didn't Kill Himself purple hoodie that you can make a statement with that I'm wearing today. Check it out. Use BTC at checkout for a 10% discount, or join the Patreon, subscribe star, or become a member on the YouTube channel to get into a private Discord server with all the great supporters of Break the Cycle and get new designs up to 2 weeks before they go to the general public at a 30% discount. Really good stuff. And of course, executive producer of the show, anthemplanning.com for all your emergency and crisis planning needs. Check these people out today, see what they can do for your business, home, or personal life. They are doing a job that the government has historically sucked at, much cheaper and much more efficiently. We had Amy Lepore on the show back a couple months ago, the owner. She's an amazing libertarian from Delaware, so check them out. Give them your business if you think it's something if you think something they can do for you. Guys, I have a great guest tonight. I'm very excited. Another guest who didn't big time me when I thought they might. He is a great actor. He's been on shows like Dexter and Lost and Supernatural. Lost was my favorite. I watched it all the time with my mother. And he is also the founder of the American Capitalist Party, one of the co-founders of the American Capitalist Party. He is Mark Pellegrino. How you doing tonight, sir?
Good, man. How you doing?
Oh, I can't complain. I enjoy doing the shows. I talk about how it was like, hard on me, and that's why, why I missed the show, but it's not hard on me. It's not that hard. I love it. I love doing the show every night. So,
right. There are worse things to do in the world.
So much worse, and it's really, these great people who support the show really help my family out. And these guys know I got a huge family, so it's good stuff. But let's start with you, man. You're not like other Hollywood actors. Right? When it comes to politics and ideology and stuff like that, there's a pretty set narrative in this country for a lot of actors, and I think probably there's probably more like you, but they're maybe afraid to come forward, and I'm sure some don't. Some do come forward, but you're an objectivist, a self-labeled objectivist. You subscribe to Ayn Rand. You've started this capitalist party. What was your journey? We usually start off with a journey on the show. What was your journey to this objectivist ideology and political party?
I would say when I started acting, I was probably a typical person that you would associate with being in Hollywood. I was an environmentalist, leftist. I was a registered Democrat, and that's the way I saw the world. And I happened to meet up with this guy who was a fellow student in the acting class that I was part of, who I would rehearse with him at night, and then we would go to a place called Gorky's Cafe in Hollywood that was open 24 hours and drink coffee and argue about politics for hours and hours and hours and hours. I guess I've always been a bit of a political animal. And I couldn't really beat the guy. He had some great ideas and saw the world in a way that I certainly didn't. And it was a bit of a turnoff at the time, but it was also very compelling. I thought, I just don't have the capacity to convince him, but my ideas are right. So I think if I can give him some of the books that I've read, the most influential books I've read, that will change his mind. So we agreed to do a book swap. I gave him 5 books that were very influential to me at the time, and he gave me 2, The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. I remember 2 or 3 of the books. I don't remember all 5 of the books that I gave him, but needless to say, his books definitely impacted me seriously. I think I finished The Fountainhead on a bus line. I just got on a bus in the valley and took it all the way to the end, finished the book, got off the bus, and laid down in the center of a bustling highway and just cried my eyes out for like an hour. Not because I felt like, oh, the hero was, had gotten everything he wanted, and isn't that wonderful? But I felt a sort of compatibility with both the main villain of the story and the hero of the story, and I wasn't sure how to bridge the gap between the two. And that started me on my journey of reading pretty much everything Rand ever wrote and trying to find the holes in the ideas, and then reading the philosophers that came out of Objectivism and trying to find the holes in the ideas, which I wasn't able to do. Maybe somebody with a bigger brain than me could. And then finally, after years and years and years of thinking about this stuff, officially adopting the philosophy probably about 7 or 8 years ago, officially. But I've been exposed to it in my mid-20s.
Sure, nice. And then you it's got to be hard to have these, this outward ideology that doesn't go with the approved narrative of most entertainers, really. How has it been acting, in Hollywood with this, this ideology and this founding of the party, the capitalist party, which is, everyone hates capitalism in America, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the good thing about being an objectivist is, most people don't really know what it is, and if they come to it through your political philosophy, if you happen to be talking about that on the set, the political philosophy is also something they can't really identify, because it doesn't. There's aspects of it that would seem sort of like what's on the establishment right. There's aspects of it that would seem like what you'd find on the establishment left, but it doesn't quite fit into any of those narratives. And that's the good news. They can't compartmentalize you. They can't pigeonhole you as a conservative. You're just a right winger. You're just this. You're just that. And so that's great. There is unfortunately a rather pervasive and superficial knowledge of Rand, and it's usually it doesn't come from actually reading her material, but from the salon.com versions of Ayn Rand. So people do have a rather jaundiced view of her personally. But I find more tolerance in Hollywood if you skew classical liberal, as I think people like us do, for us than for the MAGA folks, or the Trumpsters, the people out there that don't really have a consistent ideology or political philosophy. They're just sort of following the charisma of a guy. And so Hollywood for me has been mostly very tolerant, and the conversations I've had with people on the set, and I do have them openly, are actually very stimulating, and I think they find it very stimulating. I don't know that I've converted a few people to my side of things, but for the most part, they get it when they hear it explained to them, in a way that's I think more comprehensive than you can in a tweet or, in just a passing engagement with somebody. When you're on the set with somebody for a while and they ask you engaging questions, you have an opportunity to really get to the heart of the matter in a way that's not scary, or, in a way that doesn't induce defensive-ness in the other person. So I've found people to be relatively tolerant.
Yeah, that's great to hear, honestly. I mean, from the outside looking in, sometimes it feels like maybe they wouldn't be so tolerant of, dissenting opinions. Because really, I mean, obviously I'm a libertarian. I ascribe more to the Mises aspect of things. But, we're not liberals. I mean, classical in the sense, but not, neoliberals as you would look at them today. So, sometimes
I'm sorry, but a long time ago on Dave Rubin's show, I suggested that we never use the term liberal in association with those folks. I think we should take back that term. They use it to gain the moral high ground instantaneously. You call somebody a liberal, automatically that has moral cachet. They don't deserve it. They haven't earned it. They don't believe in liberalism, and so they shouldn't be carrying around that moniker anymore. So I think we are the liberals. You and I are the liberals.
I don't disagree with you. I had this conversation with Jeff Deist the other night. Actually, on Friday on my show. Jeff Deist is the president of the Mises Institute.
I like him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's very smart, really outward about his views, doesn't really apologize for what he believes in. I like that. But he also said, the word libertarian. He's like, people are trying to steal this word libertarian from us. who cares if we use it anymore? You know what I mean? So that's where I've been on with the, the vernacular of things is like, whatever you want to call yourself, I don't care. I'm going to keep fighting for these same principles and hopefully, move the needle forward. But it is hard when you're part of a political party that has that name. It's kind of important to think about the name when you're on the national committee for a party that has that same name. But so let's talk about your journey to becoming a co-founder of the American Capitalist Party. And I'm sorry, the first time I posted it on Twitter, I just said the Capitalist Party. I know that you guys wanted to stress the American Capitalist Party, but what is the party about? Why'd you found it? What do you hope to do with it?
Well, we founded it because we didn't find any real alternatives out there in the political world. The establishment, left and right, have more in common than I think and they have more essentially in common than they differ on. And the alternative of anarchism, to me, seems the flip side of the status coin. It's just as anti-philosophical and anti-moral and just as wrong but in different ways. So we wanted to present, we wanted an alternative out there that we felt really represented a party that could, in fact, protect individual rights. And so we actually had Andrew Bernstein, who's a philosopher, who's written a number of great books, Capitalist Solutions, The Capitalist Manifesto. He's an objectivist philosopher who teaches in upstate New York. And he wrote the platform to reflect a truly consistently individualist perspective. And so we wanted the platform to be out in the world as a sort of ideological anchor for anybody, as a reference point. Getting it started now on the ground is a whole different ball of wax, because the political establishment comes after you once you start moving in that direction, and it would require a person on the ground to either convert to our party after being elected, or to put the groundwork in that's necessary to get themselves on the ballot, which is pretty difficult in and of itself. And that's not even including the way the political parties will attack any person like that once they get on their radar. So for the moment, it's a platform and an ideological, let's say, 10 Commandments, so to speak, or Hammurabi Code, or something that's sitting there for people to touch and look at, see. It's a tangible thing, an island, I think, in this sea of chaos that people can go to and refer to for political ideas. And we hope to eventually get a candidate who will believe in those ideas and go by that moniker. I actually tried to get Justin Amash in on it. He didn't go. I also tried to get Austin Peterson when he was running in Missouri. Took him out to dinner. I was like, come on, man, screw the libertarian. Don't go libertarian. Don't go Republican. Definitely don't go Republican. Come capitalist. Let's be a pure individualist. Not a libertine like the libertarians, but a real individualist. Let's come over to my side. He didn't. He went another route. But somebody's going to pick up the banner at some point. Or if I don't want to get into the political arena because it's so disgusting. Sure. But if I have to at some point for some ungodly reason. I guess I'll be the one that has to do all the dirty work, but I'm hoping somebody else does.
Hey, man, that guy from The Apprentice was able to do it. You know what I mean?
I know. Yes. Don't remind me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about the Libertarian Party a little bit. So you're anti-libertarian party, and by now I'm sure you're starting as a co-founder of a political party, and as you stated, you're starting to find out some of the hard work it takes to make a political party in this country, including ballot access, which is the biggest fight. It really is the biggest fight. We spend $1 million a year on ballot access throughout our country trying to fight, states that want to keep any party off the ballot that's not Republican and Democrat. But why found another party instead of trying to, it's very easy, we found over the last couple of years, to change the Libertarian Party, which we've been doing as a Mises caucus. There's a caucus in the party. We've taken about 26 state boards now. We still got a whole another year till the national convention. What was it about the Libertarian Party that just wasn't doing it for you?
Well, I mean, any political ideology that can embrace socialists, anarchists, communists, a whole slew of somewhat conflicting ideologies, capitalism and communism at the same time is not an ideology at all. To me, it's a non-ideology. Certainly, a real respect for individual rights is going to exclude all of those people from the political game. My main issue is that consistent libertarians are not just the small state guys, who are the ones they call minarchists, but they're anarchists. They're people who don't think the state is a positive in anyone's life. They think it's inherently evil. The state, qua the state, is evil. I look at them sort of the way I look at leftists who think guns are evil, qua evil, and so they attack guns and try to eliminate guns from the social sphere because they think guns are bad. Well, no, governments are force, just like a gun is force, and the government is good or bad, and they've been mostly bad because they are animated by moral principles. And what I mean by moral principles are views about the way in which individuals pursue values and how they pursue them to optimize their life. And individualism has had a very short period of time in the social sphere as a moral code, a very brief moment, and mostly implicit before it was annihilated by the sort of long-standing monopoly of collectivism. So governments are bad because they adhere to some form of collectivism. And governments would be good provided they adhered exclusively to individualism. So the animating moral ethos behind that kind of state would be the protection of individual rights, which would preclude any kind of initiated force at all against anybody. So I don't see the state as evil. I see it as a necessary tool to implement or to promote a certain kind of human behavior, which is primarily rational and productive, because that's what we need to survive. And we need to delegate force to an objective institution that will take force through a due process, through a process of rational analysis, so that at all levels of the retaliatory force, we are subordinating force to reason at every level of society. And to me, that's why we have a state, theoretically, a legitimate state, and why the anarchists are wrong for rejecting it outright. For what could only be subjective values across the whole of society, which to me just means constant conflict.
Sure.
So,
go
okay,
ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, obviously I subscribe to the Mises ideas. I think that, Austrian economics first is a very important thing for me. And a lot of that falls on an anarchist, like an anarcho-capitalist is what we like to call it. Not the anarchists that are out there waving the red and black flag saying that we need Medicare for all. Those aren't anarchists to me. To me, anarchists are real libertarians who believe in unfettered capitalism and want to kind of abolish the state or roll back the state at the very least.
But to me, anarchy and capitalism are contradictions in terms. You can't have the one without the other. You do need a state. You do need definitive rules. You do need property rights. And look, I think the federalist system sort of approaches that ideal that you guys have, that concept of state. I don't want to say statelessness. I think the state is perfectly fine, provided it's decentralized in the local and the state and the federal, and they all sort of balance each other out. And most issues with respect to legislation would be carried out at the local level. So in a certain respect, that's like the world that I think you envision. But you need consistent rules with respect to behavior and property throughout these geographical regions. You can't have 5 people in the same spot deciding to be governed in different ways or running according to different rules. That's a recipe for unending conflict. And you see it in the Libertarian Party. I mean, can they agree on anything?
No.
And yet they think they can't. And yet they think that they're going to somehow live in a harmonious society because, I believe in this concept of a spontaneous economy too, and a spontaneous order as well that needs very little direction, but it does need conflict resolution from the outside. You can't purchase rights, you can't purchase justice, and you can't and force is not a marketable value to me. Force is something outside of the market, and so it has to be. I think it has to be treated as a phenomenon that's outside of the market.
Sure. Are you familiar with Hans Hermann Hoppe at all? Have you ever read anything about covenant communities and stuff? So if we're talking about at least decentralizing or getting government down to smaller levels, I mean, is that something that you would be against? Do you think we need a overreaching federal government?
No, but we have that. We have that now. If we just lived in the federalist system purely the way it should be set up, there are hierarchies of government, and the local is equally powerful as the state, and the state is equally powerful to the federal government. But they should all be sort of watching each other and competing with each other and balancing each other. I mean, for example, I think when the southern states enacted Jim Crow, it was appropriate for the federal government to come down on them. You don't have a right to. Certainly, private individuals have a right not to allow certain people on their property or not to hire certain individuals, even if the reasons for doing that are stupid. But to codify those prejudices into laws to favor certain groups, the federal government, in my opinion, had every right to come in and spank the state for that. Maybe not necessarily in the fashion that it was done historically, but certainly correcting each level of the governing structure, correcting every other level, of correcting the inconsistencies that are in each level, I think is a good thing. I think that's the only way governments can really compete is in this sort of checks and balances in a federalist system. Otherwise, competition is war. I mean, right? Competition between governments is war, unless they're contractually bound, through a constitution, which I think, do I want to lose the Bill of Rights? No, I think the Bill of Rights should be applied to every single state, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the government already should be only limited to the powers that are listed in the Constitution, and shouldn't have any more than that.
Sure. Well, hold up. First of all, I want to say a huge shout out to Lucky Charms for the $100 super chat, dude. That's really cool of you. Thank you. And Lo-Fi Republican $20 super chat. He said, "Love the Hoppe shout out." Yes, sir. What other? I mean, is there anybody? Obviously, you're really into this individualism thing, and I think that's great. I think there's been great individualist philosophers like Benjamin Tucker and stuff like that. Are there other philosophers that you've really gotten into, especially like the individualist side of things?
Besides Rand?
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you would consider Isabella Patterson a philosopher, or Rose Wilder Lane. The typical, I think, great ladies of libertarianism or associated with libertarianism are folks that I've enjoyed reading very much. And other than Rand and Aristotle, I can't think of any prominent philosophers who are individuals who are non-contradictory individualists. So they don't, on some level, talk out of both sides of their mouth. But if you can show me one that is as clean and clear a philosopher as Rand, I'd definitely be willing to read them. Definitely
much older, but Benjamin Tucker is a good one. Have you read Tucker at all?
No.
That's a good one. It's definitely a good one. Check it out. Or I don't know. Have you ever read any Lysander Spooner?
Yes, I have.
We talk about Lysander on the show all the time because it's always, that's probably one of the biggest battles the biggest battle between libertarians outside of these stupid wedge issues like abortion and immigration that we have no effect on whatsoever. I mean, literally no effect on. We talk about the Constitution a lot because there's, half of the Libertarian Party is like pro-Constitution. They're constitutionalists, small government constitutionalists. The other half of the party is no government, no Constitution, thinks the Constitution has in the words of Lysander Spooner, either authorize the style of government we have or been powerless to stop it. Either way, it's unfit to exist. As far as some libertarians or whatever you want to call them in the Libertarian Party. So I mean,
once again, that's animated by philosophy, and Lysander might not have realized that looking at it purely legalistically as he did, and as a historian and a lawyer. Right? He was a lawyer, right? He was a lawyer.
He also tried to start his own postal service.
Yes, I think I know that. But he wasn't looking at it from the depth of a philosopher, and probably doesn't see philosophy everywhere like an objectivist can. And so, certainly the Constitution is a flawed document, but that just means we have to weed out the contradictions. That's all. Keep it in spirit, and in large part, much of what's there, but just weed out those contradictions. Weed out the general language that can be used against us.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of there's a strange thing going on with the libertarian movement right now. There's this whole thing that's sprung up called post-libertarianism, which is kind of abandoning the NAP, which is really the anarchist philosophy, is the non-aggression principle. Do no harm, don't hurt people and take their stuff, if you want to get really stereotypical with it. But there's this kind of post-libertarianism thing that's kind of springing up, and even some in the party where they do believe in some state, as long as they can use the state to roll back the abuses on individual rights, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. But the government's just so huge and out of control. I mean, how do you think we go about rolling it back and getting it back down to a size that's, I don't know, amenable to some people?
I don't know that can happen unless there's a cultural revolution. I think a big enough proportion of the population has to embrace individualism. It doesn't have to be 51%. It doesn't even have to be 30%. It could be a fairly small but powerful and vocal minority of people that embrace individualism and then promote that in ways that are appealing and sexy. I mean, let's face it. The left promotes old ideas, old ethics, but they do it in a sexy way, even though it leads to inevitable disaster and general poverty. Still, people go for it because they've commanded the moral high ground. Every time they get up there, they act as if they are commanding the reins of morality. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to take liberalism back from them, because that's an automatic. We are automatically bestowing a moral stature to them that they don't deserve. And I think we should take that from every opportunity and take the moral high ground. So we can't do that until the culture embraces on a deeper level individualism as the proper ethics for a society. Right now, it's all altruism, it's all collectivism,
right.
Sacrifice.
Sorry, I got some more super chats. Actually, my little sister, who's a big fan of yours, Kaylee Fair, she gave us a $20 super chat. She said, "Love you, smelly big brother." Thank you very much, sissy. I love you. Yeah, she's a big fan of Supernatural, and my mom and I are huge fans of Lost. I mean, I watch Lost every week as it aired with my mother, and when we didn't live together, we actually called each other and would talk to each other on the phone while it was on. So it was our show. Daniel 3 Biblical Anarchy $5 super chat. He said, "Hell, Satan." So I guess that one was for you.
Right on.
Jacob Winograd said, "Would Mark consider joining the LP if it became a party that overtly and strictly endorsed capitalism?"
Sure. I mean, full disclosure, I vote Libertarian because I feel like, as loony as the candidates are, and they have been loony the last couple of times, they'll hurt me less than the creeps that the Democrats and the Republicans are putting up.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt about that. I mean, for as nice as little old Grandma Joe was, she probably wasn't the most based candidate we could have had, but she would have probably rolled back a few taxes and stuff.
Well, if the Congress would have let her do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
As it is, whatever good Trump did, he did through executive orders, and none of it's sticking. So
yeah, of course. God. So let's talk. Oh God, another $100 super chat from Lucky Charms. I don't know who you are, Lucky, but thank you so much. You're killing the show right now. You're making it great. I appreciate you.
Lucky Charms is awesome.
Yeah, you're really helping out. You're helping out the family right now. And Jacob Wintergrad dropped another $5 one. Mark is super based. Hopefully he knows what that means by now. Do you know what based means?
Yeah, I think somebody told me, but I got a few contradictory messages.
Yeah,
but I think I got the idea.
Yeah, it's basically, it just means that you're you're able to say what you want no matter how it makes other people feel. That's basically what it is, and that's an important thing. Absolutely. So when you were on Michael Malice's show a couple months ago, 3 months ago or something like that, you talked a little bit about the military and wars and talking about how that was a little altruistic and stuff. Can you expand a little bit on that here? What's your feelings on?
Yeah, I'm despite all the rhetoric of America first, which is usually just a jingoistic slogan that the right throws out there. They don't really mean it. We have been sacrificing blood and capital in other countries for other people for decades now. We haven't fought wars to defend or protect ourselves and our property. We've been doing it to bring democracy to the rest of the world, quote unquote, or more appropriately, the version of democracy that these other countries tend to embrace, which is, the freedom to elect another tyrant or some godforsaken theocracy into command the helm of their state. So I'm completely and utterly against that kind of the use of the military in that way. We're not a policeman for the rest of the world. What we are, what the military should be, is the defenders of the United States of America, of our property and our human life. But that means if we're attacked by someone, and we don't pursue military adventures against anyone unless we're attacked, that we fight to end the war. We don't fight to some strange conclusion or to build nations. We don't fight until the other side says, "I give ... But we fight to end the violence permanently, and that means that's something that I don't think any politicians or people in the military want to confront since World War II. Rather than having a conflagration that lasts a short time and has a high amount of casualties, they stretch these wars out for 15, 20 years now, over decades of persistent violence, and the threat is never repudiated. The ideologies that we're fighting are never repudiated. They're always there. They usually gain strength because when we finally leave, because it's a massive waste of treasure and blood, they proclaim victories, and in some respects, the wars become recruiting tools for them. So I say, if you're going to fight, let's just say totalitarian Islam, you fight it until it's done, until it's repudiated, until its face is in the dust and it surrenders unconditionally to you. Look, you break into my house, you don't have the right to set conditions on what happens to you. You've broken into my house, or you're going to harm my family. I set the conditions from now on. You have to just stop. And my condition is, I'm going to make you stop by whatever means necessary. Permanently. So that's what the military should do. Does that sound crazy or harsh?
I mean, that's what I've always talked about. I came to libertarianism by way of being an anti-war activist. I was in the military. I served on the USS Constellation during Operation Iraqi Freedom. I was, our ship essentially dropped millions of tons of ordnance on Baghdad. That's what we were there doing for 6 months. And when I came home, I was really just jaded on the military industrial complex. But I've held true to the fact, even in my anarchist hearts, right, at the end of the day, and I explain it like this: we're on the same journey. Some of us just want to get off earlier exits. You know what I mean? But I also understand that I'm never going to see an abolished federal government in my lifetime, probably. So the steps necessary to get as close as possible is fine with me. It's an incrementalist kind of mindset, but not a defeatist mindset. But I came by way of the anti-war movement. Not a lefty. I was a neocon, maybe even almost very theological neocon or Christian neocon. And so when I got out, I've held true to the statement that, if we're going to have a military, it should be to protect the United States and our interests here at home, and not be in 127 other countries or whatever we're in, and be fighting, wars of that are become humanity crises, like in Yemen or Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan, all this stuff. So yeah, I don't disagree with you. I'd rather see little militias, protecting their own little covenant communities, but that's just me. And I know that might be, a little far-fetched. But have you read Murray?
Yes.
And what are your thoughts on Murray Rothbard?
Well, sometimes I think he's great. Sometimes I think he's out of his mind. There's particular places in the Libertarian Manifesto that I think are quite disconnected from reality. I don't know if you were talking. I saw your lips moving, but
no,
I was talking.
No, I was saying. Okay. I was saying this is my favorite book. It's right there, right here
the
behind you.
Libertarian Manifesto, is that back there?
Yeah, For a New Liberty. It changed my mind. It changed my life. Absolutely.
Yeah, mine's up there somewhere. Up in there somewhere. I have bookcases all over my house. How can I say this? Because it's a rather difficult and abstract argument to have when we're talking about liberty. I feel like libertarians see liberty as I don't want this to be taken. Oh, what the fuck? It'll be taken the wrong way. Whatever. I see libertarians as seeing liberty as an end, right? As an end unto itself, and I actually see liberty as a tool, a means to an end. It's a human tool, right? It's an imposition that we put on. It's not natural. It doesn't come to us naturally. It's not something we're born with. It comes from an observation of reality. It comes from the observation of the way humans have to interact with reality in order to live. And I get the sense that's missing from libertarianism. That concept that, well, human beings. Observation shows me that human beings live by reason, and they have that rational being interacts with his environment in a particular way that requires particular conditions in order for him to interact with the environment in that way. And that condition is what we call liberty, which that's the restraint of society on every person, right? And we put that into law, and we call that thing liberty. I get the sense that Rothbard, like Marxists feel that aspects of reality chafe against what they want to do and rebel against that. I feel like Rothbard has the same. Is sort of the same in certain respects. Like I remember him in the Libertarian Manifesto talking about how people who are adjudicated insane shouldn't really be institutionalized against their will. Now, these are people who lack the faculty of reason. They literally need people who are rational in their lives as their wards to guard them and direct them. Otherwise, they're completely helpless in reality. He thinks these people actually have a say in their destiny when they can't. By virtue of the fact that they don't have their faculty of reason, they can't. So to me, he's missing the rational element, the fact that you have liberty to protect rational action. And I feel like that the fact that that's missing, that analysis that you have liberty to protect rational action is missing. That's why libertarians are always defending vices. So they're always talking, hey, I have a right to do that drug, to drink as much as I want, to fuck that prostitute. excuse me, pardon my French, and which is true. You in fact do have those. You do have the. I mean, morality means you need the room to choose, and that means choosing against your life. And if you're choosing badly and not harming anybody else, the laws of nature will eventually come back to haunt you. But it's not a selling point for freedom. It's not a selling point. It's an unfortunate side effect of having the liberty to be able to choose and to having moral agency. But when Rothbard claims that a person who doesn't have moral agency should in fact act as if they do have moral agency, and that no one should take that control of that situation, it's a little bothersome. And there are a number of other things I think in that book that bothered me as well, and a couple other issues. So I don't have to bring them up now.
Sure. Certainly,
it's divorcing liberty from rational action in a way, to me.
Sure. No, I understand it. It's Rothbardism is not for everyone. I get it. It could be, there's even sometimes I cringe a little bit reading Murray, but for the most part, I agree with him. Hannah Foreseen, good friend, she gave a $2 super chat, said she loved you as the bad vampire and being human. Let's see.
The bad vampire?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with.
Meaning I was just a bad vampire, or was I the bad vampire?
I guess you were. That is something that I'm not familiar with being human. By the way, that's
okay.
Lo-fi. And so actually, somebody brought up a really good point here, and I think this begs repeating. Lo-fi Republican said that defining liberty is important. Let's see, where was that exact? Yeah, defining liberty is an important discussion, and it is. I think it is. I think a lot of, even Republicans and conservatives and libertarians and objectivists, we kind of just throw around this term liberty, right? Mm-hmm. And we never really stop to think about what that means. It's always maybe it means something to me that's different than what it means to you, and it's because it just gets thrown out with no defining characteristics whatsoever all the time. So, that makes a lot of sense.
What would you say? How would you define liberty in a sentence?
To me, it would taking the monopoly of force away from a centralized entity. That's essentially what it comes down to for me is not really just giving one. Obviously centralized entity force, monopoly a force against me and other people and my neighbors and stuff like that. So, and that's kind of, I think, how I came to, Rothbardian anarchism or anarcho-capitalism or whatever you want to call it, individualism. I don't care really for the labels that much anymore, but it's that fact that, at any time this government can essentially do what they want. And,
But let me throw something out, because I don't think the economic term monopoly applies to force. Force is always a monopoly. Okay, if I break into your house, okay, one of us is going to try to monopolize the other. One of us is going to try to win that argument. All right, and only one person can between the two of us in any engagement of force. And I've been in a lot of engagements. I used to box, I used to teach martial arts, and I've been in a lot of scraps. And when you watch fighting and you watch commentators, it's always about ring generalship and one person imposing their will on another. That is force. Force is monopoly. The question is not whether force should be a monopoly or not, because all you're saying is like, oh, we should have a bunch of different, monopolistic elements forcing their will on others. That, to me, that's the inevitable end, since force is a monopoly and only one side can win in any conflict between the two. I think it's more important to say what animates that monopoly. Now, a monopoly isn't like the monopoly of government. To me, just means singular entities in a particular geographic area, as opposed to the monopoly of economics that uses the arm of government to force competitors out of the field and then dictate the terms of relationships between them and the people. It's not market driven, but you can't have a market in force because of the nature of it. Because of the nature of force, right? And because of the nature of a market. The nature of a market is the absence of force. and the absence of coercion, and delegating it to a particular institution in a particular geographic area doesn't make it bad. It depends on what's animating that particular institution in that particular geographic area.
What if we switched it up and said that the monopoly on legal force? I mean, that's kind of what we mean, right? Like, so if we go back to your your example of a robber coming into your house, breaking into your house, you have the legal right to shoot that person. That person doesn't have the legal right to shoot you. But at the end of the day, the government is the one who gets to make that call, because there are some places, including California, where sometimes if you protect your family, even you can end up in jail. So I think that's more what I'm talking about, is this legality of force monopoly, where it's like they get to say what's legal. They get to punish you for what they want to punish you for, even if it's something that you shouldn't be punished for. I guess that's what I mean.
Well, I mean, I think those laws should reflect common sense and an individualistic ethics, which they don't. Right now in California, they rob the individual of the right to self-defense. Somebody comes into my house, they're going to get shot. They're just going to get shot. So they shouldn't be coming into my house. And I would probably end up in jail, even though I was defending myself and my property. Now that is, to me, an immoral and unjust law. It's anti-individualistic. It has no place in the legal system and should be defied in my point of view. Now, to me, a monopoly on force just means at all levels you attempt to delegate violence to reason. You attempt to subordinate violence to reason at all levels. That's not necessarily the outcome in an anarchistic society, where whim and what I feel is right dictates, and I can feel it very passionately, and I'm not going to bend, dictates what's right. Sure. Whereas we have a given set of rules that everybody knows and is aware of. They should be much more simple than they are now. And we agree to those rules, and we agree to cede our conflict to that body so that we don't fight physically with each other. It's certainly legitimate to be the judge, jury, and executioner when you're alone and there's nobody to help you. Then you're obligated, I think, morally to defend yourself. But afterwards, you're also morally obligated to subordinate the desire for revenge to what one would hope is, legitimate legal processes.
Sure. We need a huge overhaul of the justice system, for sure. There's no doubt about that. Regardless of if we ever get my arbitration anarchist society that I want, we definitely, regardless, the justice system needs a full overhaul. Plus, Fanning gave us a $20 super chat. Thank you, sir. He said, "I'm not sure why free trade agreements like the TPP are unpopular. They're never going to be perfect, but I think they're in the right direction. Humbly, what am I missing?" That's something that you can comment on, the TPP.
I mean, I don't think there should be really any kinds of deals between states about what can and can't come into the country. I think that we should have a completely open society economically, and let the rest of the world follow, instead of these qualified, we'll take this from you and you take this from us. Dealing with their cannibalistic constituencies, so that everybody gets a piece of the political pie.
True. We got one more super chat here, and then I want to ask you about just a couple single issue based things. And then of course we'll go do the exclusive chat where we'll talk way more about your acting career, because that's the fun stuff, really, right? But Allison Beard, $5 super chat. She said, "Mark, what about the liberty with voting rights? Why is it not considered an individual right? Still a bit confused about this one."
I don't think vote. This is going to get, you're going to get me in a lot of trouble, Josh.
Oh no, sorry.
I don't think voting is a right per se. Otherwise, anybody could do it, irrespective of their citizenship or alliance with the state. Anybody could do it. They could just come into California and vote for whomever they wanted, because after all, it's a right. Certainly, it's a civic engagement that you can choose to participate in or not. And I think in a participatory democracy like the one we have, I'm not a fan of democracy either. It's certainly your prerogative. It certainly should be open to you if you have a stake in the community and you are here legally. It should be open for you to voice your sense of the political landscape in the form of a vote, but it's not a right, in my opinion. There's political parties that shouldn't be out there. I don't think if you endorse a political party like, say, communism, Communist Party USA, should an organization that defies rights, violates rights, is premised on the violation of individual rights and property, should they have a voice in the political world? I don't think so. I don't think people who want to violate your liberty. It's going to give me a lot of shite. I think you have a right to be out there in the realm of ideas. I think nobody should ban your books or close the debate stage off to you. I think you should fervently debate your ideas, and we should have an open society in that respect. But I don't think rights violating parties should have a voice politically, and that probably includes pretty much all the parties out there right now.
Certainly not the Marxist parties. That's for sure. I agree with you there. So I want to talk about being an actor in the times of COVID. Has it been extremely hard on the industry for you guys? I know, a lot of industries have been hit really hard. Obviously, in California, the restaurant business is just horrendous right now. But how has it been being an actor during this last year and a half?
Well, I mean, it's been weird, but I bet it's been harder on the production companies, because they have to spend something like 25 to 30% of their revenue on the COVID bureaucracy that's now descended on Hollywood and conforming to all the COVID rules. Now I'm sort of appreciative of it because they've kept me safe, but it is weird, especially after being vaccinated, going onto a set with masks and having to maintain social distance. I was last month, I was walking my dogs. I was going home, and I just loaded up my truck from my trailer, and I was walking my dogs, and we happened to pass through the catering area. Now, there was nobody there. There was one guy cooking 60 or 70 feet away from me. Absolutely nobody around. And I was walking to the other side of the grounds, and a COVID monitor came up to me and said, "Can you put your mask on, please?" I said, "There's nobody around." "Yeah, but you're walking by of a place where people eat." I said, "There's a table 50 feet away from me, and I'm vaccinated." It was absurd. I mean, I usually I'm a team player and I don't like giving people a hard time, but that was absurd. So I mean, it is weird, the quarantine. In Canada, I had to quarantine for 2 weeks, and if you went out of your apartment and they caught you, it's a $750,000 fine, and then you're out. And good luck ever working in Canada again. Yeah, $750,000 fine, and they were serious. They would come to your door and knock to make sure you are in quarantine.
My God, $750,000 in Canada. That's insane. I couldn't.
It's insane.
The whole thing is just crazy. I mean, in your ideal governance, how would this have been handled? Would it have been handled differently?
Well, yeah, of course. I don't think the government should have a place in the in the creation or the dispensing of any vaccines. I think that should all have been private, as it was, to the extent that they allowed the private sector to work. They came up with a vaccine within like a month and a half. They had already mapped the genome. They were already there, and that was because the government red tape was pushed out of the equation. Unfortunately, when they started dispensing it, the states were all involved in that, and that's why they had all the snafu. So I think all of that could have been handled privately. I think whether or not we wear masks is not something that the government should weigh in on. That's a private property issue, and I think people who own stores and feel safer with their employees and with their customers, that people mask up when they go inside, that's what property rights are all about. I think the only thing the state has a say in is if somebody is ill, they know they're ill, and they're going out there and they're being the typhoid Mary of the community. In that respect, then the community has a right to say, you need to quarantine.
Take your ass home.
Take your ass home. Right. Other than that, the state should have left us all alone.
I mean, that's how it's always been for all the other sicknesses. Is if you were sick and somebody knew you were sick, they'd be like, take your ass home, man, you're sick.
But then the state discovered that it could do more than that, didn't they? I mean, they probed for weakness, they found it, and now they're not going to give it up too easily.
Of course, and that's how it's always been. We've seen it with the Patriot Act. This is probably one of the biggest examples. It was supposed to be a temporary thing, and there we are, over 20 years later, still dealing with it.
Always temporary, always temporary. And we're going to get those terrorists. We'll be collecting your data too, but it's something that we need to do. Absolutely.
So we're getting down to the end of this public stream thing here, but I did get one more super chat, and it kind of ties in with the question that I wanted to ask you. So Jacob Winograd, who was on the show last week too, is a religious anarchist and really, really, really cool guy. He asked Mark, should there be a special group of people who have the special right to initiate force on people to claim a monopoly over civil governance? Now, wait, that ties in with what I was going to ask you. Okay, so we talked a little bit about how you don't really like democracy. I don't think any of us like democracy. As far as anybody watching this show, I can guarantee you most of them hate democracy. Would you be so this question is actually kind of what I'm asking here. What would you think about like a benevolent monarchy?
Well, I mean, I don't care what form the government takes as long as it protects individual rights. I do think that deconcentrating power in the way that the founders deconcentrated it, I don't think is good. I don't think the legislative, executive, and judicial should be all embodied in one person. That's not to say that it couldn't exist, but it's highly unlikely. But I thought the question was sort of in bad faith. I just want to say that. Jacob, it's in bad faith because it's presuming that the government initiates force. So it's automatically acting as if that is what government does. And I know he's saying it because, well, there's taxes, for fuck's sake. So they initiate force by taxes. Look, in my world, taxation would be voluntary, and there's a bunch of schemes that Rand discussed and other objectivists have discussed to illustrate how a voluntary system of taxation could take place. So of course, it wouldn't be called probably taxation, but it would definitely be a voluntary way of funding the government, which is possible. It's been done before, for the most part. I mean, income tax wasn't instituted in the United States until the 20th century. So up until that time, communities raised armies through subscriptions, and they raised money in various other ways. And there's no reason we can't do it now. The actual functions of a real government, protecting life and property, are very small compared to what we see today. I think the real cost of a government, I know there's got to be somebody like a Richard Salzman or somebody who's actually guesstimated what the cost of a rights-respecting government would be. And it's like $500 billion. It's something very, very small by today's standards
compared to what we have going on today.
Barely there. And it wouldn't, I mean, unfortunately, we're shackled with $26 trillion in debt and enormous unfunded liabilities. And how to get out of this clusterfuck, I don't know how we're going to do that. But a real rights respecting government would be nothing to fund. Nothing.
Sure. Absolutely. I agree. So that before we ended, I was going to ask you, what were your thoughts on taxation? So I think we got a pretty good perspective from you there. And one more question that I just personally want to know. What about red flag laws? Where do you stand on those bad boys?
I'm against them, and I'm friends with John Lott Jr., so I think he's one of the real genuine scholars out there that is based.
Nice.
I think he's based, and he's got lots of data from his organization that shows how awful they are and how they really actually hurt. They hurt lots of people that they shouldn't. So I don't believe that there should be red flag laws at all.
Well, Mark, man, I'm a big fan. I really appreciate you. Do you want to tell these people how they can find you, support whatever you got going on, what you got coming up next, all that good stuff?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mark R. Pellegrino. I like talking with anarchists as long as you're cool. Be cool. I'll be cool. I'm only mean and harsh with people who are mean and harsh. So don't be mean and harsh with me, and it'll be all nice. I'm also at Mark Ross Pelly, MarkRossPelle on Instagram. I don't do any political stuff on there, so if you don't mind pictures of dogs and stuff like that, then that's there. I also have a YouTube channel, which I'm starting. I've got 3 programs up there now called Reality Check. I'm about to put another one out pretty soon. I hope you guys can like that. And I'm doing something for Showtime now called American Rust. I think it's a great show. Jeff Daniels and Moira Tierney. I think it's going to be a really good show. So stay tuned on Showtime. It should be coming out, I think, in September, October.
You're working with Jeff Daniels, huh? Legend.
I am.
Legend. I love it. That's great.
He's great.
Yeah,
He's great.
Absolutely. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you. If you could just stick around for like 2 minutes while I close out this stream, we'll start the private stream.
Right on.
Hey, thanks again, man. All right, guys, another awesome episode of Break the Cycle. Mark is awesome, super based. I love it. What can you say about the guy? Go follow him, check him out, go watch his stuff. He's been in so many great things. How could you not? The guy was in The Big Lebowski, for crying out loud. Go watch his stuff. Once again, please become a channel member on YouTube. We got about 40 channel members now, 70 people in the Patreon. All you guys get great after hours content after every show, between 10 to 30 minutes with every guest. If you join the Patreon or the Subscribe Star, you guys get some cool swag, shirts, all that stuff. By the way, Lucky Charms, thank you for another $100 super chat. That's $300. That's a lot of money. Please get a hold of me on Twitter or something. I'd like to send you some shirts or a coffee mug, or I don't know. I'll come find you and give you a hug. I really appreciate it. Guys, check out our sponsors at lorenzotti.coffee for all your delicious Italian coffee needs delivered directly to your door. Bring the taste of Italy home. Use BTC at checkout for a 10% discount. And of course, toplobster.com, my friend, my partner, the man, the myth, the legend. Go check him out for all your wonderful graphic design needs. The man hand draws everything. All of our thumbnails for the show, the entire aesthetic, everything is him, including this great Epstein Didn't Kill Himself hoodie that I'm wearing tonight. And, of course, executive producers, anthemplanning.com for all your emergency and crisis planning needs. Check them out today. See what they can do for your home, business, or personal life. They're doing a wonderful job that the government has historically sucked at. Guys, I will see you tomorrow. We have a great week lined up for you. I unfortunately have not loaded the Trapper Keeper with all the great thumbnails yet, so we will talk more tomorrow. I will see you for the Wednesday show, but until then, don't forget to break the cycle.
Due to legal reasons, I just have to explain. The lyrics of my last song may seem to contain a violent call to action in the verse and refrain, but I just meant it in Minecraft. The helicopter part was in reference to GTA 5 and the things you do. So any violence you commit, I am not an excuse, because I just meant it in Minecraft. But Chipper is my friend and he's constantly cold. Accusations of incitement getting totally old. Make your own choices, yeah, you have control, because I just meant it in Minecraft. Obviously I would never advocate force, unless there's due process and a trial, of course. And if you're convicted, we will make you a corpse. In Minecraft, just in Minecraft. Nothing I mean, you know it. No product dinners, cause it closed for COVID.